This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Live tonight from the virtual Richmond Raceway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. Happy that you're with us as the round of 16 rolls on tonight on your home for sim racing at the iRacing Esports Network. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, and Justin Prince up on the call with you this evening. Our producer is Randy Chennett, twisted and tweaked at aisles in bringing us to you. And Justin, we come 1 week removed from the 2019 playoff opener, where we saw Jason Jacoby punch his ticket into the round of 12. And tonight, as we get racing on a short track and under the lights at Ridgeway, Virginia, slowly but surely our playoff picture is starting to form.
Yes, indeed. Some of the playoff drivers in that race had a very rough run at Las Vegas. Drivers like Horn, not able to make the start with PC issues. McClendon, contender early, got in incidences. Fredericks had a bunch of damage early on. It's going to be tight to make it to the next round of the postseason still. But tonight is a challenging one. Bumping and baiting we're about to expect here at Richmond. It's going to be a wild one.
And let's talk about the playoff grid coming into this evening. So as noted, Las Vegas has come and gone. 2 races still to go on this round of 16 as we get set to eliminate 4 drivers. So the drivers in the red with the positive numbers, those intervals above the cut line, are good as of now. And those down in the gray are in a trouble spot. And notably, of course, Jacoby with a race win gets that automatic bid to the next round. Andrew Ferdinand way out in front, 53 plus. That's courtesy of 33 bonus points that he started last race with, courtesy of all his regular season wins, so he's in a very good spot. But as you get closer down, the Georges, Kamer, Shackelford, Sanford, Fredericks, not all that far above the cut line. Rhett McBride, first driver on the outside looking in, -2 with Andrew T. Jones, Scott McClendon, and very notably, Justin, Connor Horn, who was a top contender in the regular season. He missed last week's race because of a computer problem. He was not certain that he would be on track tonight, and he thought that maybe he would only be back in time for the Roval next week. He is here this evening, so the 24 car looking to get back up and into the positive.
Yeah, this is an important race. These next couple rounds or so, he's going to need to have good points and as well a good run. Now the question's going to be, can he do so here tonight? Because one of the contenders in last week's race, like Dylan C. Jones, he's the repeat winner here at Richmond. He won in the spring, and we're all set to look at the grid because those familiar names we just mentioned, Evan, are going to be up at the front, it looks like.
Indeed so. Let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSR TV starting grid. And Dylan Jones will start from pole position. The only driver to get down into the .5s. It's a 19.595. Puts him on a pole. And Connor Horn, who comes into this evening after dropping nearly 11 spots in the championship from a missed race. He'll be there alongside in second position. Andrew Ferdinand rolling from third tonight. Jeremy E. Miller with a great starting spot. He'll be on the outside of row 2 in 4th spot. And Cody Griffin, series debut for the drive of the 15 machine, and he ends up P5.
Time he had a qualifying dead even with Anthony Fredericks. He looks to rebound and will start in P6 after a very rough run in Las Vegas. William Kurska's back in the 29 machine as well tonight. He'll start in P7 alongside Brett McBride. Rounding up the top 10, Daniel E. Eberhardt in the 90 machine. And your race winner last week to start the postseason, Jason Jacoby.
Eric Stanford going to be right aboard row back. Going to be a duo playoff drivers with Stanford starting 11th and Kamer on the outside rolling from 12th position. Blake O'Connell is going to be about halfway through the field in 13th with David Washington on track tonight. He'll start from 14th position. Just behind them, you'll find Jonathan Cadell, who starts in 15th.
Remember, Skylar Shackelford was in the conversation for the victory much of the race at Las Vegas last week. He'll try and have a good run, but will start near the back in 16th, in front of Thomas J. George and Andrew T. Jones, who are in row number 9. Rounding out the top 20, Brian Chambliss in 19th. Caleb Weekly rounds out the top 20 in all the qualifiers in the 19-second bracket.
3 more drivers did get a time at quali. They were in the 20s. Scott Brotherton, 21st. Sean Kalis, 22nd. And Jeremy Bazemore in 23rd. So the rest of the field get to go to provisionals. It'll be Shane Parrish, 24th. And Scott McClendon in 25th. RJ Williams from 26th spot tonight. Todd Novosad, 27th. And Matt Miller going to round out the field in the 28th and final position. Let's talk more about Richmond Raceway, America's premier short track. Clock it in at 3/4 of a mile in length. This D-shaped oval's got 14 degrees of banking. And of course, when you look at the calendar and where we sit, a very critical race with a road course coming up next week. For those drivers who feel like they may not be the best at the Roval, you need to maximize points and stay out of trouble this evening.
And with so many unknowns for the Roval and so many chances of disaster on a road course such as that, for many drivers, wouldn't be surprised to have them put this event here as their must-good run, essentially race tonight, or must-win situation, because we're at the 750 horsepower again with the short track tonight, but we're also going to see a lot of potential drivers battling for the up at the front. The question is, can they take advantage of track position, and can they take advantage, if you say get clean air, of that said air, and force the dirty air to push drivers into airtight conditions.
Playoff drivers make up both of the front 2 rows. It'll be Dylan C. Jones who will bring us to the green flag this evening as the pace car gets set to head down and in. So happy that you're with us on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network, where we say let's go racing at Richmond. Green flag in the air for the second race of the round of 16.
And a nice clean start, but everyone already, as you see, trying to rush their way to the bottom side. That's the preferred line of the early going to the race, but already the leader's making contact.
Connor Horn side by side. He got into Dylan Jones, and the 03 car had to go way down to the back straightaway to hang on. They're going to be okay. Nothing else comes from it, but Connor Horn now early to the race lead. Ferdinand filled the gap behind. The 88 car goes to second, so Jones ends up in third. Battle on track behind them now sees Cody Griffith again, his 2019 debut, up at the inside of Jeremy Miller and William Kurska in this battle as well, but a very close call there for your race leaders right off of the bat.
Yeah, that was near disaster already, but a tough way to try and move yourself to the race lead. But the problem is, for if you're, say, Jeremy Miller now, is there's a revolving door set up underneath you. On the short run, you want to be along that yellow line in the corners. Miller is now stuck on the middle line, which can burn up your tires early. You can get to the top side in the mid to long run to make moves, but for Miller right now, needs to try and make sure he preserves the tires to try and put himself into a chance to make passes in that mid run.
And as Miller drops back, the driver who wins it at all of this is William Kruska in that Sim Racers for Mental Health Chevy. Been a couple of weeks since we've seen the number 29 machine on track. Always happy to have William on track with us, and of course to have Sim Racers for Mental Health a part of this 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. You can see those logos, of course, on the contingency panels for all the cars in the field this season. They're not going to go easy on them, though. That 3 of Jason Jacoby's in the middle middle of the mix. He's up 4, trying to challenge for P5, but at the very top of the pylon, Andrew Frenage is hunting on the back of Connor Horn. Small bobble that time, but 4 gives him some space, with the 24 car only about a half a car length up.
And these cars can get loose off the exits 2 and 4 as this run progresses with the fixed setup. The track temp also kicking itself up as the drivers put some heat onto the surface. So for Frenage, it's going to be tough with some of the aero push behind Horn. But we've seen it many times before this season, though, Evan. Andrew likes to be patient, force the driver in front of him to burn up their equipment, and then when he sees a chance to strike, passes on by and gains a ton of time away. So wouldn't be surprised to see Frenage stay patient and stay behind Horn for the time being.
And that has been his MO oftentimes this season. Of course, Frenage, an 11-time winner, the most ever in a single season in the nearly decade-long history of what is the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. So as he continues to follow the 24, peeking to the inside, and Connor Horn thought about leaving the bottom lane open. That'll continue on. We're fighting for 6th position a little bit further back. It's Daniel Eberhardt now on the charge. Both he and Jason Jacoby have passed 3 cars from the start of the race, but Adani wants to get the 3 back, and he does. So he'll steal P6 back from Jacoby, as mentioned, your race winner from last week in Las Vegas.
Jacoby was actually struggling a bit in practice, especially after about 10 laps or so, it seemed. Was fighting with that loose condition, especially down the front stretch. You can see how much he's having to let the car roll more in the center compared to his other competitors around him, already losing some time. While Eberhardt just in front of him, taking advantage of William Kruska to get himself into the top 5.
A very good run. Kruska tucked up behind the Renani machine, so Eberhardt is able to, as you mentioned, get up and around him, but the 29 trying to lose separation with the rest of these cars, because your top 3 have opened it way up, and not surprisingly, as Frenage sits on the bumper horn for a few laps here, Dylan Jones in 3rd has started to close the gap. So 4th on the back, you're looking at more than a 2-second interval to race leader Connor Horn, but these top 3 are on a collision course with one another, and maybe Jones's pressure is going to influence Frenage. Again, he'll flash the nose to the inside. Connor Horn leaves a little bit of space, but not enough for the 88 to work with, and he'll hang on for another lap. But the 88 car now really starting to make those aggressive dives to the inside in a Hellman's Ford Mustang.
Yeah, it looks like some of the speed is actually switching towards its way, this time buying lap times. Frenage actually a bit more slower, but they're a 1/10 of a second slower than Dylan C. Jones right now, so I think Frenage is getting held up a little bit here. Just has to figure out the right chance to make a pass, because if Horn leaves the bottom side open, that allows him the chance to say, squish him down. Try and force him to get off the throttle and basically slow down on corner exit. Frenage having that happen here, but is able to carry just enough momentum to stay on the left rear.
And now he's got a whole lane to work with, so maybe this will help him out as they get about door to door in the center. But then maybe that 88 machine doesn't want to be all the way down. Connor Horn has been pinching him quite a bit, and it seems like Frenage, while he's right there, center of the corner, he just can't get back on it, and leaning on Connor Horn as Frenage has got to get out of the throttle. Those two nearly came together as he pushed up the hill out of turn 2. So he's feeling it down on the bottom to make that race car work, or it may not necessarily like to run. He'll tuck back in line and try again, but cue the Jaws music, because here comes Dylan Jones from 3rd spot now. That gap down to just half a second.
Yeah, now if you're Jones, I think you try and look for the chance to go, say, to the outside. Yes, it's early going in this race. Yes, there's still 156 laps to go this time by, but he's the fastest car on the track, has been for about now 10 laps or so, give or take. So I think Jones has the speed, like he had in the spring, to do something here. He just needs to wait for the right moment. Don't force it. You don't want to have aero damage in this race.
In these top 3, you can see on the wider shots have really checked out, but certainly Frenage and Horn got awfully close that time. I'd say probably closer than either of them would have liked at this stage in a 175 lap contest at Richmond for today. heights at Sim Racers for Mental Health at 175. So battling continuing, but drivers again seeming to want to follow each other in line on the inside of the racetrack. But when they get that nose at the bottom, really can't do a whole ton with it. Kruzko, we mentioned a good start for the 29. He has since actually dropped back to P9, so that hot start now has relegated the 29 back a few spots. And Jeremy E. Miller, somebody else who has been struggling, a playoff driver who came in as the number 5 seed, 17 above the cut line in a very good spot, but started 4th tonight. He has already fallen down to 12th.
Yeah, some of the good drivers on fresh tires already struggling, as you mentioned, on the long run here. It seems like some of the drivers letting the car again roll a bit more in the center and not wanting to snap towards the bottom side of the racetrack, towards the wall or the grass. And that's kind of costing them on the long run pace. I think they're thinking big picture here, not wanting to risk it with too much throttle, let's say. But right now, again, as we've seen, it's killing them in terms of position on the track in terms of the rest of this run.
You saw it over the weekend as well with the Cup cars, and not a ton of passing going on once somebody establishes themselves as a race leader. Still seeing packs of cars, 2 or 3 here and there. But this is going to be a compelling 3-way battle for the race lead, I feel like, shortly, as we are 25 laps in already. Everhart still in 4th, hotly contested by Cody Griffin, but that is some nearly 4 seconds off of this battle for the race lead. One small bobble horn stepped the back end out a little bit there. Ferdinand saw that, challenging down to the inside and won. The 24 gives him the space to work with. I think confident that he feels like he can hold them off regardless. Frenage again now in turn 3, right alongside him. Corner exits where he loses some, and it is sustained too wide as Jones watches on, but Horn seemingly not all that stressed about this.
Yeah, because again, Horn has the ability to squish Freenash on down, force him out of the throttle, and already back to single file just like that. But if Horn gets loose like he did before out of turn 4, wouldn't be surprised to see Andrew jump again, because that's what he was waiting for. Needs an error, one of those mistakes, but we're getting to a point now with these drivers already having such a quick pace that they're about to reach lap traffic in a little bit, because Todd Nobosad is about 10-15 car lengths up the road.
And this is going to start a trend now if this race is to see prolonged green flag action, where lap traffic is going to be a factor throughout. We're not talking about, 40 cars that you're going to have to be weaving in and out all night long, but 28 no slouch either. This thing is to go. Green flag racing through some pit stops. Navigating that traffic also going to be imperative to how well your long run pace is going to be. Your top 3 now are all on top of each other. Jones is there. But I thought that maybe when he got to the back of the 88, he might have stormed him, gone right to make the quick move, but has not been the case. So maybe both Ferdinand and Jones saving a tad bit, and also wonder how this kind of plays into the psyche for that Speedway Chevrolet at Connor Horn. You see again the 88 peeking out to the bottom of the racetrack, but not going to make the move. Connor Horn's feeling this. He's feeling the pressure. Got the most successful, most dominant driver of the season on your bumper to the inside now. And so many times they've been so close. I have a fear that one of these times they're going to overstep that line.
And now it's going to get curious to see how the traffic is here. This might be a good opportunity for Horn to gain a bit of cushion. Novosad stayed to the high side this time. It looks like this will indeed help a touch to gain a better extra half a car length, but not, I think, as much as Horn wanted there, with the lap car trying to be used as a pick essentially. But you hit on to the point there that they've been racing very close. This is a track, again, we've seen throughout the weekend in the sim and in real life. It's hard to pass on a long run unless you have the right opportunity, and so far, Horn's been having a near perfect race. They've been battling all season long in this type of a situation. The question is, how much longer can Horn hold on, because it's a one-stop race, and if we keep on going the way we're going, that pit stop might be very important.
And how long until we see that point? Of course, you try to map out a path of strategy in this race, and may work on a 3-stop strategy depending on how frequently you want to come down to the pit lane. Tire fall off is a big indicator of that. We're already looking at about 1.2 seconds of fall off just in this one as the 88 rides the back of the 24 machine into 3 and 4 once more. They've actually started to gap Jones again.
Yeah, that's in part because Jones looks like he lost a bit of pace after having the lapped car, and it's been discussed by a few drivers in the NASCAR Peak and Freeze iRacing series. If you end up using up your tires on one lap, you essentially have about 2 to 3 sets of corners to try and get that tire balance back. If you don't, your tires will buzz the rest of the run. But the leaders are battling for first again.
Side by side, Freedage actually the advantage on the inside, but as again, the outside the better place to be. Eddie Connor Horn went from a half a car length back to a car length clear, that time down the back straightaway. So it's very obvious here that if Freedage is going to make it happen, he's going to have to clear him by the time they get to the center of the corner. That or Horn's going to have to make a mistake on exit. We have seen, well, Horn has pinched Freedage down into the corner and in the center. Coming off is when that 88 has kind of squeezed the 24 back up top. A little bit of contact could loosen either car up. That could be a deciding factor. I just don't know if you could really drive it in hard enough here on entry to clear somebody by the center of the corner, considering how tight these turns are.
Especially early in the race. It's going to take a good run off the following corner, trying to get side by side first off, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that near the end of the race. Right now, you don't want to end up risking any aero damage or wrecking yourself and or the fellow leader in this type of a situation. Just keep the pressure up, force Horn into a mistake, and you keep on going for the time being, because eventually, something's got to give, and Horn is now going to get some dirty air again with some of the lapped cars now about 10 car lengths up.
They were already able to get around Todd Novosad, I should say, who started in 28th position, runs in 28th position, and is kind of doing his thing, running a race in the New Centric Solutions Toyota. Doing his thing at the back of the back. You mentioned next up would be Brotherton, and then it is a quick list of drivers, a couple of tenths off of him from here on out. That's where the lap traffic starts to get a lot thicker, but 42 laps into this run, it doesn't look like, maybe with the exception of Jones, and that's minorly, that any of these guys in the top 3 have really overdriven it. If Connor Horn was being forced by the 88 to get way out of his comfort zone, I think we'd really see the 24 showing major signs of struggling at this point in the run. Maybe Jones had to dig a bit to catch up to them. That's why he's dropped back off to that 6 or 7 tenths of a second margin that he was at about 20 laps ago. But your top 3 continue to put time on everybody else. So it looks like things up front going to plan.
Yeah, they are right now, as here comes Freenosh again trying to dive it once more. But yet again, still can't get where he needs to. Might need a good run on the corner entry. Can he clear him?
Trying to make the pass for the race lead. Nose to nose, and he actually sticks with him to the start-finish line. That time, the lap was led by Freedage. He'll clear now into turn 1. Horn gonna look to the inside. The crossover for the race lead. He'll pull right back up alongside him, but now he'll have to try to make the pass on the line that he made it so difficult for Freedage to. Side by side again. That time, Horn to the advantage by 1/1000th of a second, and this has brought Jones right back into the picture as Horn now forces the 88 car high.
Horn, though, getting a little bit loose off the corner exits by fighting this hard. But you see the run on the high side. If Freenosh able to get harder on the gas, allows him to get the edge of the stripe once more. Now just needs 1 or 2 more sets of corners maybe to clear him. Just needs Horn to have to let off. But Horn's not doing that. Horn's pushing as hard as he can, knowing this might potentially be the rest of the run here.
And it was a bold move, I think, for Connor Horn. Not that he let the 88 go, but he saw Freedage with the advantage for the first time at the bottom, and to set that initial crossover up, back way off on entry, cut to the inside, and to go back down low, and it worked. It got him basically to where he is right now. They have been dead even since then. But Horn again made Freedage try time after time on the bottom to make the move, and it never worked. So so he was very willing to go right back down there and give it a shot at his own. He's almost clear at it, turn 2, and he's got it back. So Connor Horn, just when you started to think that maybe Ferdinand getting by would have been the start of the end, Horn gets right back around him to the race lead, now 50 laps in.
And I think two things helped with that. Horn was actually, for much of that side-by-side, you might have noticed, getting to the throttle quicker, but as well letting the car roll in a bit more quicker on that yellow line. So that carried him just enough, really, I think, to balance out the run on the top side. That's one of the first times we've seen a pass on the bottom side all week like that fulfilled. Horn looking like he is a man possessed, trying to lock himself into the next round already after having to miss Las Vegas.
And he thought again, as we mentioned, that he was going to miss this one too until he got the computer fixed. So there's a bobble though, trying to get around the 20 car. 3 wide with lap traffic up high. Farinage back to the inside. And just like that, it's got a squeeze now. Jones going to move the 24 up after Horn tried to pinch him out of a fight for a second. And one mistake. Horn going to go to third, and he's not happy with the 03 car. A shove to the bumper there. He'll ride his bumper all the way to turn 1. Is it going to get physical again? Yes, it is. He'll move him up and out of the way, and we are door banging for second. Now more contact, and Jones gets muscled out of the way.
All I can say is that's not smart, because that just crushed in Horn's nose with the first contact. Let's take a look at this whole sequence, because Horn got the dirty air from the lap traffic, trying to hold on to the race lead, then was forced down to the bottom side. That allowed Frenosh on through. Horn, though, trying to come back to the bottom. Jones was already there, squished on down. Second time, mind you, they made contact. Jones quickly made the pass, and then Horn, as Jones was checking up, made contact with the back end and didn't show his happiness, as you mentioned there. Jones tried to enter the corner harder to avoid potential contact. That got him loose, and then Horn essentially pushed him up the racetrack, and that all caused a lot to happen, and all of this helps the man in the blue, number 88, and Andrew Frenosh, who now has a 1 second lead and just had the fastest lap on the track.
And it all started, you mentioned, when they got to that lap traffic, trying to get around Scott Brotherton. I don't really think you can blame Jones for the first one. You said it, he was there. Connor Horn obviously was hoping that maybe they could play chicken and he would have backed out of it. But even if you do put the blame on Jones there, that's one piece of contact from Jones. Horn got him back about 3 or 4 times. Right back in 3 and 4. And then, of course, at 1 and 2, when he first moved him out of the groove and then door slammed him off of the corner to get the space. So you can see the desperation in the 24, not in a win or go home situation, because he was able to start tonight, but 16th out of 16 cars, 8 below the cut line and needing a good run. It'll be awfully interesting if those two find each other later in the race. But now Ferdinand, Horn, Jones, all your top 3 are in thick lap traffic. Horn now struggling to get around the 43 car of Kalis on the outside.
And you can see how much he's trying to push, nearly drifted it to the inside, but the problem is he's got a ton of aero damage he'll have to deal with until we get a potential caution flag here. So not only that, there's the temperature. This car is going to be hot on the oil and potentially the water temperatures much of this rest of the run. So he's not going to have an easy race here at this point, because you can see it, how much he's having with that nose damage. He's struggling a bit with the handling off the corner now, with the aerodynamics all messed up.
And we'll see if that hurts. That's the big thing is, of course, you want the spot in the moment, but if you get too physical and you hurt your race car for the long run, then that's obviously going to hurt you long term in this race. Lap number 60 now complete. Ferdinand enjoying the largest advantage for the race lead we've seen so far this evening. 1.2 seconds ahead of Connor Horn. If these drivers were looking to go for the 60 and 120, the 3 stint 2 stopper, you think they'd be down to the pit lane already, Justin? So are we stretching for a 1 stopper?
I'd have to say completely yes, sir, because the fuel can go around about 115 to lap 125-ish. And then I wouldn't be surprised to see everyone come in for the fuel. Thing is, I don't think many people were expecting this kind of a situation where we have a long run like this. This is the longest run I think, of the entire week for some of these drivers. But again, wouldn't be surprised to see drivers come around, say, in about starting 20 laps or so, give or take, to try and split the race in half or try and go as long as they can to get the freshest tires of the race. Should note we did see one car as it was making that sentence duck down, Scott McClendon trying the undercut.
And of course, you have all these different battles going on as our top three really went at each other. Separation between Eberhard and Jacoby, 4th and 5th position, side by side for 6th and 7th as David Washington is trying to hold off Rhett McBride. This battle continuing. Of course, David Washington with limited starts this year, not a playoff driver, going up against Rhett McBride, who comes into tonight 13th in the points, 2 below the cut line. So all of that's important as McClendon now going to get boxed in. The 51 car down pit road recently. Fresh tires for somebody who may be going for the 2-stopper. He's trying to do his best to get around these cars without interfering, but if they're too wide, that means we're going to go 3 wide. He'll go to the inside. Oh, the 98's going to get tagged. Not enough room for Washington. He'll hang on, but a close call for his Ford.
And all I can really say is that's short track racing in part, but also you had a driver on fresh tires boxed in a couple times. I think McBride wasn't expecting that a little bit, pushed up on the corner entry and ended up hitting the left rear of Washington. But a good save by the 98 machine to keep himself going. Only lost the 1 spot, but those back tires are going to be much more hotter for the next few laps or so after the drift.
So another piece of contact amongst some top runners, and McClendon didn't do it the first time he waited, but there's not enough room with those wide arcs, and that contact drops Washington back, interestingly enough, only 1 spot, so we didn't lose a ton. Again, it was a very good piece of driving by a very talented driver. Should not end up in the fence there, but he's got Kamer, he's got Stanford all over him, so those drivers obviously going to be dealing with this battle. As more funny going on throughout the pack. The number 4 car is down to pit road as we fight for second. Dylan Jones is back on Connor Horn. These are the 2 that made contact earlier. How will this go over?
Well, that's how it's going to go over. Jones not showing happiness, already crushing the back nose now of Ford's machine. This is not going to help either of the races, all I can really say. But you can see the frustrations boiling over in the 03.
And again, 24 gave him a couple of shots, so Dylan Jones, I think, is due some in return. It wasn't really, I don't think, the smartest of moves there. If your bump is going to move him out of the way, and corner entries where you go for that. I think that was just a shot to say, hey, I am here. Jones also needs to be concerned that if he moves the 24 up and out of the way, Justin, we're not talking about a battle for the race lead. This isn't move him on the last lap so he can't get back to you. If Jones roughs the 24 up, he knows that that car behind him is very inclined to return the favor. So we'll see how he handles this one. I actually thought after that contact that Horn had sustained less damage and was going to be better. For a few laps, he actually started to close the gap back into Freinage. Since then, they have both dropped off, and Horn has really fallen into the clutches of Dylan Jones here in the number 3 spot. And there's our trusty lap car, McClendon, fresh tires. He'll have to navigate this tricky situation.
And McClendon said on Facebook before tonight, no more putting himself in bad situations, gets away from a potential one there, able to get by 2nd and 3rd. But he still has to unlap himself. That's the main thing. He opened up the pit window. We've seen Novosad jump down the pit lane. We've also seen there a couple other drivers that have gotten damaged, like Fredericks and Miller now with longer stops. But right now, McClendon throwing the dice a little bit. He is in the window, should note, to make it on fuel if need be.
And of course, you do have some mixed strategies. 16 cars right now being shown on the lead lap. Some of those have just gotten lapped by your race leaders, but others, as we've seen, have come down for tires and have blended back up and onto the racetrack. This time by 75 laps down, 100 laps to go at Richmond. In the Sim Racers for Mental Health 175, this battle for second is still ongoing, and I got to admit, Justin, I can't take my eyes off of it because I feel like something's got to happen.
Yeah, something's got to give here at this point. Horns, though, looking a bit more slower and slower And on top of that front end damage, now with that first shot, some back end damage to the spoiler. Here comes Jones, seeing the opportunity to try and do something. How much give and take will there be after so much contact between these two drivers while trying to battle in lap traffic?
In the 03, looked to the bottom of the racetrack that time, but he did not complete the move. So we wait and see if a return attempt is coming, or if he's just going to back off, but again, ride around. Maybe the best way to get to this is we're not that far away, maybe 10 laps or so away from the one-stop strategy window being open. So do you go for the undercut and hope to get some separation rather than putting yourself side by side once again? And the last time that happened, things did not end very well. You can see the lapped cars, the 4 car there, that's a pretty damaged Anthony Fredericks machine. They're all being very respectful, getting up and out of the way and letting these drivers race, but I feel like if Dylan Jones wanted to, he could have put a move on him here. Maybe a little bit timid wanting to set this one up.
Or maybe having teammates potentially tell him, think big picture here. Do you want to risk your race and your chance for a championship by trying to fight with somebody for P2? Gotta think big picture here, and I think that's what he's now doing here, as he'll have to let by Novosad. No, Novosad on the fresh tire squished up towards the fence.
The Novosad way up there on the outside, 34 machine as mentioned. We talked about him a little bit earlier in the cycle. The 24 almost came up on him, but more acutely aware of the lap traffic at that time, and maybe the better idea than what we saw happen with Brotherton in that 3-wide situation, to take the car that's got the better tires and just ring it around on the outside. It is, of course, not the most efficient way to get through, but you know you're going to be out of the preferred group with race leaders seemingly exclusive to the very inside.
Yeah, it's going to make it very challenging because, again, many drivers know if you lose that bottom, there's the chance somebody's going to try and fight for position on you or send it in even 3-4 car lengths deep in some cases, we've seen with the confidence of some people in the brakes. But the question is, when do they come down to pit? We are still seeing more drivers duck down like Daniel Eberhardt. The window is more than open at this point. Now it's going to be curious to see, do they follow Andrew's lead, let's say, or do we see drivers like Horn, Jones, or Jacoby go for the undercut? Because the time difference on fresh tires and old tires, about 2 seconds, with Richmond, the action track, being a high tire wear circuit.
And of course, 84 laps anywhere. That's a long way to go. Short tracks, obviously, very different strategy-wise than some of the faster, and of course, a completely different package on these cars when we're racing at intermediate racetracks. So we'll see that a little bit later on these playoffs. You saw it just a week ago at Las Vegas, but I would expect pit stops to begin very shortly for your race leaders. And don't let this ongoing fight for second distract you from Freenage. He could easily sneak down to the pit lane before all of them, as the battle for P2 gets around to Blake O'Connell that time, relatively without incident. Freenage is 4.4 seconds in front of the field here, and cross flag to be in the air this time.
And ever since he got that lead, I should say, after Horn left the bottom open after some of the lap traffic and having to get off the gas to make sure he didn't pinch the lap traffic, he's been in command. He's been one of the fastest cars on the track. Only one driver, by the way, has been quicker, Evan, Jason Jacoby, but this halfway point, he's looking like he's got another dominant car.
The way that this plays out, I don't think is going to shock anybody. I already mentioned the accolades, 11 race wins. Of course, there was an earlier race here at Richmond, just the 8th race of this season, way back in April. That one was won by Dylan Jones. In fact, it was his first win of the season until much later on. Again, when he missed a couple of weeks and then he made that late regular season push to get in to this playoff. Couple of drivers now from the lead lap starting to trickle down to pit road. Still waiting for these top 5 or so to pull the trigger.
And one of the drivers that actually ducked down to the lane this time by was Cody Griffin. In his debut for the season, been having a quiet but strong night, running much of the night inside the top 10. Putting a nice little staple in this, and we were talking about him a little bit before tonight's race. Had worked for a couple weeks to get himself into the requirements to make sure he could enter tonight, and well, he's having a strong night, to say the very least.
Certainly is, and it's kind of hard to track where everybody is running right now, with the faster cars most likely being the cars that are a lap down. You can see the running order at the top of your screen. We'll hold off, though, on taking our look at our FEGPC midway race break until pit stops happen. Just would be a good bookend on it. More cars now diving down to the pit lane. Shane Parrish is in. That's a top 11 car down to the pit lane. So pretty much waiting on the top 9 to pit. Frenage, Horn, Jones, Jacoby, McBride, Kamer, Stanford, George Cadell. Those are the cars still out onto the racetrack on a very long run to open this race that has gone incident-free since the drop of the green flag now 92 laps ago.
Well, technically caution flag free as Williams ducks down to the pit lane, but this has been the cleanest Richmond race I've ever seen, to be honest. A lot of times at Richmond, it's known for having your double-digit caution flags, to be honest. It's known for that a lot of times in real life, but tonight's been very clean. And now, second and third, cleanly getting to the pit lane this time by.
Frenage also in, so I don't know if it was a decision to follow him down or if they all just agreed, but lap number 93 seems like a pretty random number, but first, second, or third are into the box. Big thing in a race like this, no penalties. Make sure you get down to pit road speed that is just 40 miles an hour, and also clean in and out of the box. But the main thing is, even if you lose a second or two on being safe in, do not get penalized. Frenage goes for 4 tires and fuel. That's give you the call for everybody else. And as he blends back up on track, it is Dylan Jones. He beats the 24 out by a mile as Connor Horn now is sitting in his pit stall.
And it looks like he might have got a penalty, Connor Horn. This is a tough pit entry, we should note, where you have to essentially come from the edge of the 14-degree banking to the cone, and there's a lot of chance for speeding. Looks like he tried to get it down to 40 miles per hour, might have got it just the entry, but if you get it too high at one of the sections, where he was up to 41 miles an hour at some points, you can end up getting the speeding penalty. That cost Horn dearly in track position.
I initially thought that maybe it was damage repair because, of course, the front and the back end are pretty torn up, but he was running all right. I don't think he would give up the time, despite the fact that you would like to get that car fixed, but I mean, I didn't see him over the speed limit on entry. You mentioned in one of the sectors it would have been awfully close if that's what he got nailed for, but just like that, I think Dylan Jones' strategy paid off. Let's not mess with this guy. We've had a little bit of history already in this race, and he ends up being the cleaner car in and out of the pit lane, and therefore he doesn't actually have to pass him to get the spot away. Jeremy Bazemore with problems. The number 1 car came down pit road, missed his pit stall, was late in, so he's got some damage, and he is going to take a tow to get that car repaired, so that is going to hurt his night. Some other things to note, William Kruska has gone to the garage, so has Matt Miller. And I believe that may be it for now. Anthony Frederick's last place car actually active on track. The performance sheet with damage is in P26. But through this cycle, it is now Daniel Eberhardt scored as your leader, as he now waits to come down pit road so we can put a bookend on pit stops.
And he again was one of the drivers that did an undercut, and it actually worked out. Had some good timing with the traffic, and now has that half a second advantage. The thing is, though, is he going to be able to hang on? It's already a half a second a lap being eaten into the 6-second advantage, and we got cars slow on the bottom of the track. O'Connell off the pace, off of 4.
The 67 is very slow. He's limping around the inside line. There was contact in the corner. There was an incident here. We'll see if we can get a replay. The 43 of Sean Kalist was coming down pit road and was slowing down above the yellow line, so he was a little bit too hot, couldn't get it off the racing surface. The 15 of Cody Griffin in his series debut drove into the back of him. That car was absolutely destroyed, and then we saw O'Connell slow. We got a smaller piece of damage in all of that, so 3 cars coming together at a pit road entry, but it does not trigger a caution flag.
Washington also got a piece of it, but that's not a smart way to enter the pit lane. We mentioned the difficulty. A lot of drivers recommend you get down to that apron about halfway through the corner if you're entering the pits. They had no idea he was trying to duck down there. He was about 20 miles an hour slower than everyone else there. They weren't expecting that. That's unfortunate for Griffin the most, though, because he got a shot of the inside in the front of the nose, of course, but as well in the back end of the car. Now significant damage. Also lost him 3 spots in the process.
It did, so this all hurts him, and we still await for Eberhardt to reassume the top position. But you mentioned the big loser and all of that being Connor Horn. He's got some work to do once he gets around the Bernardi machine. This would all really cycle itself out and complete everything on the strategy. As you can see, the number 24 car now getting up to the 90 and getting set to pass Daniel Eberhardt, who leads this race by 3 seconds over Freenach. And 24 not happy to wait around. He gives Eberhardt a shot there. Again, as we still await Daniel Eberhardt to come down pit road as the only one still holding out.
No, he has already pit again, Evan, to note again. But the thing is, he's on much older tires and he's losing more and more time as Freenach is continuing to gain some position on the track. At this point, I'd be very frustrated if you're Horn, though, because now he's able to get on by, but that took a lot more longer than expected.
The 90 car going to get past, but the 24, as all of this cycles on through, and again, Freenach will assume the race lead once he gets around to the Bernardi machine, and all of this battling on the racetrack to cycle things through. Of course, you talk about drivers on different strategies. At Eberhardt, those much older tires, not a part of this cycle, and is going to have to come down pit road an entirely additional time. So off cycle with all of these drivers. Freenach is closed it in now. The 9 car is in between them. That's a lapper of Thomas George, who is in fact the first car off of the lead lap. So we'll have only about 10 cars on the lead lap and about just as many 1 lap down at all of this. But Freenach about 5 laps away from getting back to P1.
Yeah, now at this point, it's showing that this is the potential risk with the undercut strategy. If you have very old tires, it makes it not only hard to defend, but be able to even sustain the time of drivers on different tires. 20 lap difference on tires between these two drivers. Eberhardt already having this lead, not just being closed in on, but bidding into and quick. He's going to be sitting around like a rolling stone, essentially, once Freenach gets a chance to make this move.
And I just don't think this strategy is going to work out. The 88's on his bumper. I suppose he could stretch it 100 laps if he really wanted to, but I mean, at that point, look how slow you are already. You don't want to go to distance. There's smoke in front of your race leaders and cars are spinning. The 98 car Washington. Oh, and Daniel Eberhardt is involved in the accident. Caution flag at lap 111, and it takes out the race leader.
And it looks like Connor Horn was fighting hard with one of the Aegis cars. It was for position, I believe, with Washington into turn 1. Hornet was trying to stay alongside the wall while Washington actually trying to arc it up into Horn's door. That sent both of them side by side. Horn was drifting around. Washington had saved it, but Washington pinballs off his own teammate in Stanford and flips over Eberhardt in the process. Multiple air cars stack up, but man, oh man, a lot to unpackage there for the first yellow flag of the night.
Well, let's rewind this. Let's go back a lap before this contact, because there was a story between those two. Connor Horn had gone to the inside of Washington to make the move, and he squeezed the 98 up a little bit out of turn 2. So Washington gave back. He moved him there out of the way. Washington put the 24 into the wall out of turn 4, and then we picked things up where what we saw in turn 1 was Washington door slamming the 24. So I thought that it wouldn't have made sense for Washington to just do that unprovoked. It was relatively minor contact by Horn that moved him out of the way the lap prior, but a little bit of history, and it ruins Eberhardt's race.
And you got to remember, too, that he's already made contact multiple times with Dylan C. Jones, also a member of that organization. So there was a lot that was potentially boiling over in that situation, and that was where the kettle started to boil over and blow steam out. So now Horn, he'll get a chance to repair his damage, but man, that is unfortunate for Eberhardt and has just changed everything.
The race leaders down and onto pit road, and Daniel Eberhardt's night is done. That car goes to the garage. Again, I still don't think the strategy would have worked out for him regardless. Besides that, though, we're under yellow at lap 15. So let's take this opportunity to take a look at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. Andrew Friedage, your race leader, and it will be Dylan Jones back into second position. Jason Jacoby third. Skylar Shackelford is actually going to give up P4 to come back down pit road. So Kyle Cameron will bump up to that spot, and Rhett McBride will round out your top 5. Eric Stanford's going to be in P6. Scott McClendon 7th. Connor Horn in 8th. What a night he has had so far, with 9th position going to Thomas George. And of course, then all these cars looking for Wade Bynes. I believe Andrew T. Jones would be the last in the top 10.
Actually, Andrew T. Jones just ducked down into the pit lane from the wave-around line, but drivers amongst this top 20, Cadell, Jeremy E. Miller, Brian Chambliss, Shane Parrish, R.J. Williams, Scott Brotherton, Caleb Weekly, Todd Novosad amongst the drivers in this grouping. And of course, as mentioned, Andrew T. Jones all around the top 20. Daniel Eberhardt, mind you, is already off the track. Also, Washington and Cody Griffin have also been in the pits for a significant time at the edge of that grouping.
And then continue on with Eberhardt shown in 20th. He'll lose more. With David Washington is 21st. Cody Griffin 22nd. Sean Kalis 23rd. Blake O'Connell 24. And Anthony Fredericks in 25th. Rest of the cars out of the race. So Jeremy Painsmore P26. Matt Miller 27th. And William Kruska P28. That's been a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. FEG PC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group build. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go online to fegpc.net. and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Getting set to go back green off for the first and only caution flag so far this evening. Green flag with 117 down as Friedage wants to check back out.
And a good start again from already his teammate up to second spot, but again that fight's going to be third on back. This is going to be again a rush to the bottom side. Just the second time tonight, when you think about it, these drivers will be on fresh tires in a restart like this, as it's been a relatively clean night so far.
It has been, all things considered, but we have seen those short track tempers, a couple of incidents that did not lead to caution flags, and a lot of banging out on the racetrack in battles for position. Very quickly, though, things single file back out. Nobody really gained or lost a ton off of that restart. Of course, Connor Horn going to try to work through the field. The top 3 trying to not let Friedage get away, but this thing could very easily break out into the Friedage and Jones show. Again, Friedage, best car all night. Dylan Jones, race winner for the Richmond Spring Race on this 2019 RealSimRacing Cup Series. So all of those factors to keep in mind. I feel like Jason Jacoby in third may be winning the battle for the best of the rest.
Yeah, he's had, even though he struggled a lot on the mid-run, it seems, on that first long green flag run, it seemed he was able to get himself back to comfortability on the lone run about 30-40 laps into the race. So I think right now we might see a similar situation. The track has got a lot of rubber buildup and a very high track temp at this point. So it's just a matter again of focusing up and keeping a good consistent rate, because right now that good consistent rate is about a tenth of a second off the top 2.
The way that it looks now, 13 cars on the lead lap, but given that we had already thought that your race leaders had made the pit stop, but that would allow them to go the distance, the trip back down to the pit lane under yellow was mainly just to get fresh tires for the restart, knowing that everybody else probably was going to do the same. We should be able to run this one out to the end, caution flags permitting. So Friedage knocking on the door. Next time by, it's going to be 51 laps to go in this race. Of course, that is just about the point where things really started to come unraveled on that first run when the lap traffic started to get thick. Friedage has a very good idea of what he needs to do to get this race car to go that long.
Yeah, and again, they're all good to go on fuel. That's the thing. But as well, you want to make sure the tires can last and you're able to have a good, strong run in that case. But if you're any of the drivers that had to take the wave around, mind you, you're up to about 30, 40, up to maybe even 50 lap old tires at this point. Those drivers are hoping this does not go green because they're going to lose time in bunches to Andrew Freenach at the head of the field.
The way that it looks now, of course, as I mentioned, Jacoby, Cameron McBride, I just don't see somebody else coming in with that extra. And, well, what would this mean if this is where everybody says, well, Freenach really doesn't need the win, Justin, but that hasn't stopped him all season long. His insistency on perfection is what gave him such a big advantage of, 30-plus points to start this round next week, or last week, I should say, but, he's already 53 points above the cut line into tonight, so even if he doesn't win next week, he'd already be mathematically locked in. So, that's kind of what we expected. Freenach to move on, and as he gets less and less bonus points, these 3 bonus points for a potential win tonight would help him at the start of the next round of 12, where it could get more interesting, but Freenach is doing what we expected him to do. But what about our cut drivers? Rick McBride came into tonight 2 points below the cut line. He is running P5. That's really somebody I want to highlight because he is doing a very good job for himself this evening.
Yeah, he's had a fairly quiet night amongst those drivers that have just been running fairly consistently. And right now he's actually having the best stint, I think, of this entire night so far because he's closing up a little bit on P number 4. So he's doing what he needs to do here. Keeping the car clean, keeping the car fairly quick, and actually pulling distance on 6th on back.
And that's good. And you mentioned being quiet. I think that's also been a good thing tonight because if we've been talking about you've either been Freenach, and that's kind of the one exception, or we've been saying you're beating and banging and wrecking, and that's obviously not what you want. So, big night for him. The other drivers, Andrew T. Jones, not the greatest, 16th, but not that terrible. Scott McClendon has been trapped laps down at multiple points in this race. Of course, he was a lapped car factor in a lot of what was going on earlier, but he is now back up through the cycle in P7 after starting in 25th. So he's having a very good run. Connor Horn, ignoring the contact, he's also having a very good run, top 10. So with the exception of Jones, who isn't having a bad night, just not a great night in the 64, everybody who came into this evening below the cut line at lap 133 right now is doing what they need to do.
And this is going to apply a lot more pressure, I think, for the Roval for some of these drivers because a lot of the drivers around that bubble were around the mid-tier to almost 2 laps down grouping at tracks like Sonoma this season. So this is kind of where it could get very dicey for some of those drivers at this point. But we'll have to see how the rest of this race shapes out, essentially, because it looks like they're all settling in pretty good, all having a pretty solid rhythm.
And that's another key, is it may have been difficult for drivers in some of those more chaotic moments. I think we've actually both kind of noted, Justin, that some of the pieces of contact maybe they were not the most rational. Like, it's a bit of contact, it's a short track, but you got to take these blows and go with them. When you get an opportunity to get some space, you kind of keep your sanity a little bit and you think a lot more smarter about what the objective is to get to the end of this race. And when you're Freenach, when you're Jones, you're kind of locked in. Jacoby's got a bit of pressure. Kamer has got a shot here tonight at cracking a podium behind the wheel of the number 8 machine as he came in +7 above the cut line. So many different storylines interwoven into this, and it's a different kind of chaos tonight on a short track than what we'll be talking about for the next 3 weeks, even through the end of this round, going to race it at the Charlotte Roval. That's going to be a crazy race in its own right. We raced the old original Roval here in the playoffs last season, but first time racing the new one, and I guess the new one when you consider that iRacing's got that new chicane already scanned into the service. But even to start the next round, Dover, short track, Talladega, a plate track, a lot of craziness coming up in these few weeks. So take these small moments of clarity when you can get them, because it is a long and hard-fought battle in the road to this Full Throttle Cup.
And not only that, there's still more short tracks left on the schedule. After the Roval, tracks like Dover, Martinsville, Phoenix, you still have to go through those tracks as well. So there's still lots of potential chances of bumping and banging on those short tracks. And that's, of course, not including the Roval and the road course in and of itself. So there's a lot of chances you're going to have a bit of contact with some of your competitors as the season goes on. It's just a matter of, one, avoiding it, and two, if you accidentally make that contact, minimizing any potential damage.
And looking through, some battles are shaping up. Here's one for 7th position. Scott McClendon's under fire. The 24 Connor Horn race car that ain't looking pretty enough to go to showroom floor anymore, but still getting around Richmond Raceway good enough as they challenge for 7th and 8th positions. Again, two very different stories for these drivers tonight. It's been a rough and tough one for Connor Horn, who started on the outside of the front row and runs in 8th now, whereas Scott McClendon has minded his P's and Q's, had gone from 25th to 7th as the biggest mover so far this evening. They both got about a 2-second advantage over Skylar Shackelford, somebody else who's been quiet, but 51's going to make the 24 earn this one on the inside.
You know, I think Horn's the faster of the two right now, and we've seen Horn be able to get the bottom side to work before. It's just a matter again of, can he get enough speed on the apex to get the pass done? It looks like McClendon's realizing he's a bit faster. Had a big check up in the entrance, the apex off of turn 2. And Horn, just about, and does get this pass done.
Connor Horn clears. He'll go back up into the number 7 position, and next driver on deck for him would be Eric Stanford. It is plausible with 30 laps to go in this races for mental health 175, but I don't know if I'd go all in on that bet. Some separation there on up. I mentioned Jacoby won that far ahead of Kyle Kamer. He's actually pulled a little bit more in recent laps. That advantage is now closer to 0.7 of a second. McBride about equally as far behind Kamer as he is behind Jacoby. So a lot of space mid-pack. It's going to come down to if we start to see these cars hit the long run. And I mean that being if I don't think everybody, Justin, can conserve tires at the same rate. I mean, they can do pretty close to each other. These guys have been racing in these cars in this series for the better part of 24 weeks now this year. So they've got an idea of how this 2019 package works now, and they've got it ironed out. But there's always going to be the differences. 50 laps into a run, right when we're getting to the end, maybe some cars are going to be better than others. I think that's when you're going to see these second or so gaps close. I don't know if they happen in the next 10 laps, but it could be an exciting final 10.
Yeah, for some of the positions especially, remember, the leader at Andrew Freenach is kind of the king of tire conservation, but others kind of prioritize the first 30-40 laps at especially a short track like this because you don't expect a race such as this to pop up. Remember, the last time we were here, 11 caution flags happened. Almost a third of the race ran behind the pace car, so it's pretty much been a race some drivers may have not been preparing for today with 27 laps to go. But for others such as McBride and Stanford, they're actually losing time, even in some of the clean air. To the drivers like Horn, like McClendon, there's chances they reel them way back in.
And the way that it looks now, Freenach continues to stretch it out. That advantage now 2.5 seconds over Jones. Jones just now getting around Brian Chambliss, one of your playoff drivers who's currently scored in 13th position. He comes into tonight as the number 6 seed. So what a run it's been to open the postseason for the 45 car. As you're doing what you can now. I mentioned with Andrew T. Jones earlier, he's still 16th position. I say that it's not terrible. Well, there's 12 cars finishing behind you. 16th in the round of 16 might be good enough, and because it's not always top 16 are all the playoff drivers, so just because you're outside the top 12 doesn't mean you're outside of the top 12 in running order. But top 12-ish, top 15 I think is kind of the benchmark you need for the round of 16. But it's going to get progressively more difficult because as we eliminate drivers from the round of 16 and then eliminate them for the round of 12, you're starting to get faster and faster race cars not in the playoff picture anymore. So those standards are going to have to go up. By the round of 12, you're going to be needing top 10 finishes at minimum if you want to be a top 8 car. To the round of 8, you're going to be after getting podiums if you want to be a part of the championship 4. So I wonder if these drivers who are having good enough runs for their current point situations, and a caution flag now going to come at 151.
And it's Dylan C. Jones making contact with one of the HBR machines, trying to get by Jeremy Miller, and Miller looks like he got loose down the middle of the straightaway. That has happened sometimes where you end up running pretty well and then drifting. I don't know if that's the case this time, though, looking at a second glance, because that wheel turned a bit to the left towards Jones.
Well, there was some contact off the corner as well before. Jones and Miller side by side. The 03 machine came up and squeezed the 23 into the fence a little bit, and maybe Miller was not appreciative of that one and definitely made contact with the Jones on the straightaway. There is also another factor in this, that contact earlier between Horn and Jones, well, that was with the teammate of Miller. So there's a lot of history maybe between these two drivers, between these two teams, and that one may be looked at after the checkered flag tonight.
And yeah, we're going to take a look at the onboard here, and you'll see just a touch bit to the left there at about 11 o'clock, right towards Jones. So that'll have to be definitely taken a look at, to say the very least.
The pit road open under that, and it kind of caution flag ruined by deep dive into the playoffs. Point being, the later you get in, the better you're going to have to run. Andrew Fredage's advantage once again disappears. He goes for 4 tires and fuel. I don't think he's all that concerned, even if you can put a good challenge on them. You know, right off of on them, I guess I should say, if they can put a good challenge on him right off of the restart, I still don't think that, you know, you get him for a lap, but I don't think anybody's got a car that's better than Fredage 20 laps into a run. It's going to be a little bit less than that as we get set to go to the end. Fredage, Jacoby, Kamer, 1, 2, and 3.
I think for Andrew to lose this race, he's going to need to either make a mistake on pit road if we get an yellow flag, or somebody's going to have to force a mistake. Use a bit of the bumper, not necessarily move them to the wall like we've seen in a couple of cases, but just use the horn a bit, get him a bit loose, and try and open up the line, get him off the throttle a touch, because it's going to be tough to be in, because Andrew's been the quickest car, short, mid, and long run, once he gets to the front.
Just getting word from the tower there. Jeremy Miller going to get to the end of the longest-line penalty for claiming responsibility for the caution. So that does come with a penalty point, which will transition over to next week. Of course, Miller had a plus 17 to the cut line this evening. So not that he wanted to drop outside of the top 15, but it does hurt his prerogative a bit. Maybe not as much as maybe it would have hurt some drivers closer to the playoff line. But now getting set to see if the lights go out on top of the pace car this time. A whirlwind of cars looking for wave buys. Brotherton, Weekly, Williams, Jones, Fredericks, Novasad, all looking to get at least a lap back. Williams and Jones would get back to the lead lap, and then we would get set to go back racing.
And we're going to look at, it looks like 14 drivers, give or take, on the lead lap here, but it's going to be a tough one to try and capitalize on any mistakes for Andrew, because he hasn't really made any. Not any damage to the car, hasn't even tapped the wall once tonight, hasn't made a mistake down the pit lane, has had some of the faster stops on the night. It's going to take an absolute wheelman performance to get this job done, coming to 17 laps to go for this restart, Evan.
And we haven't had a short run tonight. Even if it goes green to the end, less than 20 laps, it is going to be a dash to the end. The top 10 cars, all playoff drivers. What is still in the cards tonight at Richmond? Pace car down and in. Fredage going to take off again. Green flag in the air as he leaves Jacoby in the dust. Here comes Kyle Kamer. He'll get to a race high P2.
A bit of teamwork there on the bottom side to time it up. Jones also having a good launch as well because of that, able to get side by side with McBride, and now Jacoby stuck on the top side as Jones gets to the corner panel.
And this is the fight. It is going to be for third on back as Jones trying to make it up the bottom.
McClendon in the grass just barely avoided the wall, Evan.
And he's fine, no caution to bring it to stay green. He's slow on the apron at 1 and 2, but he was able to hang on. He's 3 wide now with some traffic after he and Jonathan Cadell made contact. It was more so McClendon to bounce it off of the ball across the nose of Cadell. Again, no yellow. We stay green. The battle continues for third, and Jones will clear Jacoby at a 2 to take it away.
And Jones is a-coming. The only driver that's really matched the pace of Andrew all night, even in the dirty air, has been Dylan. He's been fighting hard. He's made lots of contact. He's had to fight and claw his way up to the top 3 time and time again. And now, the question is there going to be enough time? It's going to be a tough task. Remember, Jones, at this point at Las Vegas, was the race leader before that slipped out of his fingers with the dirty air and the tires kicking in at the closing stages of that race.
We had thought that race was done, and all of a sudden he dropped off deeper into that run, and Jason Jacoby was there to pick up the pieces to go on to victory lane for a 5th win of 2019. Is that going to happen to the Ironman? Andrew Ferdinand, so perfect, makes all the starts, puts a fast race car on track week after week, and has ice in his veins, is ever so critical and I think perfect in the moments when it matters the most. Kamer, as we mentioned, he's second. Jones has a good shot at getting it back to him if the damage on the back of the 03 doesn't hinder him. But here comes Horn now to the inside of Jason Jacoby, side by side for 4th and 5th.
And Jacoby had a bobble last time by, opened up the door for Horn to get the run into turn 1. And again, Jacoby loose. This is what happened to Jacoby about 10 laps into a run last time at the start of the race. And now he's stuck on the top side with a bit of a loose car off the exits. Horn, with all that damage, still showing he's still got a bit of speed in his car.
He gets the pass. Next on deck, Rhett McBride inside of the final 10 laps at Richmond. Jason Jacoby is millimeters off of the outside wall, but it is not enough to stay ahead. And McBride, another critical pass for position for a bubble driver coming into this evening. So a lot of drivers making big runs this evening when it matters the most. I think now most of those battles off of the restart have sorted themselves out. And to take a look up front, it is Ferdinand 1.3 ahead of the fight for second as Jones is closing to the back of the 8 car.
And the clean air is absolutely helping Freenash at this point. Already a 1/10 of a second quicker a lap. This time 2/10 of a second quicker than Kamer, his own teammate. So Andrew, as long as this stays green, this is in full control for him. He just needs to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes because he's got the pace to keep himself away from the chaos behind if it builds back up.
And of course, if they start battling, Horn's there, McBride's there. You know that those drivers would love to get into the picture. But the reason I mentioned that your top 10 were all playoff drivers on the restart is because if anything were to go down with these fast cars, it would have major playoff implications. 5 laps to go this time by. P2 is where to watch. Horn is closing on Jones, who continues to stalk the 8 car.
And Kamer's also closing in. Or Jones is closing on Kamer, I should rather say. A little bit each time, not as much of a pace advantage as he had before. But again, Kamer this time pushed a bit up. Closed the gap a bit so more. I think Jones is a little bit more comfortable with a couple laps to go. Well, Kamer, he might be using a touch bit too much throttle and getting close to the wall, having to lift the touch. That's allowing the 2 drivers behind to build in as they reach the traffic.
And they do have that traffic up in front of them. Todd Novosad would expect the 34 to go high, let them by, and there it is. He'll get up and out of the way. No issue for those 3 cars to ring around on the inside. Ferdinand even now further up the road. This time by, going to be Popsicle 6 in the air. 2 laps to go at Richmond as Ferdinand wants to get the white flag.
Remember, if we get the white flag, the race is official, and that's important. Just last night, we seen that in some racing action on GSRC, in fact, come into play. It looks like, though, he's got a lot of distance getting ready for that white flag.
And he's got clean racetrack in front of him. Final lap for Andrew Friedage. Here's the battle for third. Jones now under attack as Horn goes to the inside. Side by side. Kamer in front of them, going to get roughed up in the 24. This battle going to go all the way to 3 and 4. We're in front of them. It is Andrew Friedage. Win number 12. He'll win at Richmond and lock into the round of 12. Kamer finishes second, and Jones holds on to the podium. Horn right on behind him, finishing in fourth.
An absolutely crazy race, an anomaly of a race. Very little caution flags, 2 on the entire night. But the man that looked most in control, the most consistent, the cleanest car on the track, Andrew Friedage again with another textbook victory.
And what a drive for the 88 machine. Textbook is the exact way to put it. He got off for the restarts, never even gave them a glimmer in their eye that they had an opportunity to catch him, and he's so used to this one that we'll see some good burnouts for the 88 machine. 12th win of the year, but the first on the playoffs. And well, no, he didn't need to win to go home. He probably could have finished 20th tonight and still would have already mathematically locked in even before we got to the Roval next week. He does pick up critical bonus points to start the next round.
Yeah, that's going to definitely help him here, but it's going to be tough to beat this guy for the championship. He's been the strongest driver in the series for a couple years running now for a reason. And again, about 22 victories in the span of 2 years. That is something you rarely see.
Especially in this series, you have a lot of drivers who have, gotten up into the upper echelons of wins. Drivers in the teens and even some in the 20s, but oftentimes it's you get a handful and you got to fight for all of them. Not often do we see prolonged domination like this, and with this format, everybody is vulnerable. Everybody has an opportunity, but Friedage will not let you forget that he is by far and large the championship favorite. We'll take an opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll go trackside, talk with your top finishers, and get you set for the round of 16 finale next week at the Roval. You're watching LSR TV's continuing coverage of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. More to come. You're watching the iRacing Sports Network. Green flag back in the air. 2 more laps to go. 8 drivers. 4 races. These are the moments that define champions. Zach Novak, final time to the start-finish line, takes the checkered flag and wins. Who will reach the peak? The battle begins now. Let's go playoff racing!
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was always fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos or danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all will be kept in the pits. Not to mention that with members in over 130 countries already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series and work your way up to one of 7 world championships, offering over $500,000 in prize money. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
And back live from the virtual Richmond Raceway, where LSR TV's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, continued tonight with the 25th race of the season and the second race of the round of 16. As we welcome you back into the LSR TV booth, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, and Randy Cheneth with you. We will go trackside and talk with our top finishers in just a moment. Before we do so, let's take a look top to bottom at tonight's Ford Entertainment Group full race results. Andrew Ferdinand to victory lane for a 12th time this season was able to pull some 2.4 seconds over Kyle Kamer in that run to the end. Kamer, a very good finish in the 8 car. Dylan Jones also finished third after starting on a pole. He won here in the spring. Those drivers will all be trackside with us in just a few moments. Connor Horn gets a 4th place finish after quite a night for him. The Brett McBride behind Tim rounds out your top 5. Jason Jacoby slides to P6. Thomas George finishes in 7th with Eric Stanford in 8th. Skylar Shackelford, a quiet P9 this evening, and Jonathan Cadell rounds out your top 10.
Ryan Chambers came away 11th spot, was able to move up a few positions towards the end. Scott McClendon in 12th. RJ Williams and Andrew T. Jones finished as the only other drivers in the lead lap, just 14 total. We're able to say it that way. Shane Parrish finished 15th, the first driver lap down, along with Jeremy E. Miller, who came away in 16th. Finishing 2 laps down in a rough race for him for the points, Scott Brotherton. We'll get to that reasoning why after the post-race interviews. Caleb Weekly finished in 18th, with Todd Nobasad having a rough night, 3 laps down in 19th. Sean Kalis, 9 laps down in 20th. Remember, he got hit trying to enter the pit lane, one of the last drivers to do so. Ended up collecting a couple of drivers in the process.
It was one of the many incidents tonight that didn't lead to a yellow, so his night was done at that point. Blake O'Connell comes home in 21st to get most of these cars either had major issues or just did not get all the way to our scheduled distance this evening. 22nd for Anthony Fredericks with Daniel Eberhardt, David Washington, and Cody Griffin, your top 5. 3 of the last 4 names I mentioned started top 10 in this race. Jeremy Bazemore behind finished in 26th. Matt Miller came home 27th, and a DNF at the bottom in 28th position for the 29 car of William Kruska. That's been a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600 plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group computer. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Visit www.fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Let's head down to Richmond Raceway Victory Lane, where we are stood by with the race winner tonight, Andrew Ferdinand. Andrew, congratulations. Tonight was just one of those nights, and well, we've seen them quite often in this 2019 campaign. Tonight, obviously a big one because you move on to the round of 12. Not that you were sweating over it, but playoff wins always got to feel nice. Tell us about the evening.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the funnest night I've had in this series since the package changed. That thing was so fun to drive, so fun to race around people, and qualified. I did okay, better than I thought. I'd start third there, and just kind of biding my time, riding behind Dylan and Connor there, and I was trying to get by Connor. I could not do it. I don't know. He had something figured out because I could not pass him, and then he got loose there behind the lap car. I was able to clear him, and then we pulled away a little bit. I was really hoping that race was going to go caution free. That would have been really, really cool. We really, really had to wheel that car around, and that would have been a hell of a race of attrition. But, we had those cautions, still able to pull it out. But, man, this one feels really, really good. A lot of fun to drive tonight.
Cautions, it seemed like this race could have gone all the way. We were pretty close, and it's Richmond, so you expect some cars to be getting into one another, but it seemed like it was difficult to pass. So oftentimes when you would get side by side, and you can kind of speak to that because you mentioned trying to make that pass right off of the bat there, that drivers would kind of get locked side by side. They'd start squeezing down or pushing up and door slam at each other, and it led to some drivers to tear up their race cars with some emotions overheating for the rest of the field. Wasn't the case for you, but what'd you feel like down there on the racetrack?
Yeah, I know there's a whole lot going on. I kind of muted all drivers. I don't like to get involved in that. I was kind of like I said last week, trying to get in the playoff zone with these tracks that you can really practice at. So I was just trying to block all that out and do what I needed to do in that car. I know there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened, a lot of angry people, but I tried to keep out of that and just move on.
But certainly been a good enough strategy for you thus far. You talk about practice. The Roval comes up next week. You're already locked in. You could put your feet up on a lounger and watch all the chaos. But what are we going to see in what is a return to the Roval for this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series? Of course, we ran the old and non-modified version last year, but our first opportunity to get a crack at the real one. And, of course, it's got that new chicane put in.
Yeah, interesting fact, actually. I've won the last 4 races there at Charlotte, either the Oval or the Roval. Or, sorry, the last 3 races. So I feel a little pressure going in there, honestly. But I got to turn a few laps. They put that new chicane in, and it's really eliminated the hardest part of the track. I thought the old chicane, it was going to be a tough race just to keep your car clean, because I did a ton of runs there, and every single time I would hit the chicane and wreck my car. So I think it kind of took a little bit of the difficulty out, but it's still, you know, a challenge to get in there and slow down. And you know, I like road course racing, so we're just gonna go out and have fun next week. Our attention turns to, I believe it's Dover. It starts next round, and we'll go from there.
We look forward to seeing what's still to come this year for you, Andrew. As always, the sponsors, the shout-outs, and all those good folks who makes it happen for you on Monday nights.
Yeah, I give a big shout-out to Dave Washington and Dylan Jones. We ran a ton of practice laps last night that really got me in the zone for tonight. It's a shame Dave got an accident there, I believe. And got to say thanks to all the fans for watching, you guys for broadcasting, Eric for putting the paint scheme on, Daniel, Kyle, Sean, Shane, everybody over at Aegis, and all the drivers. You know, it was hard racing out there, especially lapping some of these guys, but I really, really enjoyed that. So thank you to everybody there, and I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Appreciate your time, Andrew. Appreciate you racing with us here on Mondays on LSR TV and the iRacing Sports Network. Congrats on the win, and we'll catch you at Charlotte as you look to, I guess, defend that reputation. We'll see what you got.
Hey, thanks so much.
The race winner tonight for Richmond, Andrew Freitas, joins Jason Jacoby. Playoff drivers get the opening 2. He is also moving on to the round of 12. It is a big night this evening for Kyle Kamer, who comes home in second spot. He'll rocket Justin 3 points up in the championship standings.
Yes, indeed. We're standing by with him right now. Had a quiet but strong run overall. Started off in 12. Kyle, how do you feel about how you did tonight to get this top 2 finish this evening?
Oh yeah, I feel great. You know, I didn't get a chance to do a whole lot of practice this week. You know, I got to thank Freenars because he spent about 30 minutes with me earlier this afternoon trying to figure some things out, and I think that time that I spent with him made a huge difference for me on the long runs.
Yeah, it looked like on top of that too, you were getting better and better as the race and the night went on here. How difficult was it to try and keep yourself constantly consistent while keeping the car clean like you did much of the night, while also trying to make passes on the racetrack?
Yeah, at the beginning of the runs, it was really easy to make passes because I felt like you could do it from the inside line or from the outside line. But you know, once the tires got worn in, you had to really take your time and set the guys up to get them on exit and then beat them under braking into the next corner.
Now, of course, this is a strong run for you overall tonight, as mentioned by Evan. Helps you out in the championship standings a touch too, up a few more spots in terms of that picture, but up to P5 specifically, plus 14 above the cut line, heading into the Roval. What's the pressure like at this point? Because, of course, the Roval, a challenging racetrack to say the very least.
Well, the Roval is chaos, and you know, if we can survive turn 1, lap 1, I'll feel pretty good about it. But I'm not sure if you remember last year with the Roval when they had that big restart and Kyle Busch and everybody else went flying in to turn 1, and so that's what I'm kind of scared of, is getting destroyed on that first lap going into that first turn. I feel like if we can make it through there and we can manage the race and get a top 10, that'll be enough to get us through to the next round.
Yeah, no one wants to be in the Tums heartburn turn fence, that's for sure. And it was a track where last year with the old configuration you finished in 7th. But is there anyone you want to thank for being a part of your second place finish and being the middle of the sandwich, so to speak, for a team 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, thank everybody over at Aegis Racing, especially Andrew for the time you spent with me tonight, and Dylan and Dave and Eric and Sean, Shane, all those guys, Daniel, sksimracing.com. If you guys get a chance, go check them out for all your sim racing needs. And then Interstate Batteries, all battery center in Sandusky, Ohio, and Concord, North Carolina.
Congratulations to the second place finish tonight, Kyle. Very clean race.
Thanks.
Kyle Kamer coming away second place tonight. Plus 10 for the drop of the green flag, and it was a wild one for the third on back, Evan. I believe Dylan C. Jones finished in that spot.
Dylan Jones comes home in third this evening. It is not a return trip to victory lane, but still a very good night for the driver of the 03 machine, who we are trackside with now. Dylan, congratulations on a good result that has you headed into the Roval with a comfy 33-point advantage over the cut line, which I know you got to be feeling pretty good about.
Yeah, definitely gonna need that going into next week. Last time we went to the Roval, I think I only made it a few laps when I ended my night, so it's definitely not a track I really enjoy yet. I'm probably gonna have to put some laps in, so we don't want to wreck out so early this time. But it's definitely a difficult road course compared to some of the ones Cup Car goes to, so it's gonna be interesting.
Tonight had its ups and downs. Obviously, you guys finished at a very good spot, but that Ford Mustang doesn't look as pretty as it did at the drop of the green flag. Just tell us about these 175 laps and the battle scars in which that car shows here.
Yeah, she's got a few bumps and dings on it, but it's doing all right. I mean, this is a short track, I think, so got to have some dings on it. So had a few issues out there, but got lucky, kind of came out with the third. I thought we were going to be dead there at the one time.
You guys are able to make it through, but again, that buffer gets you in a very good position, about as high as you could be up in points without being a mathematical lock to move on to the next round. It is a very different Roval, though, from what we saw in this series last fall. Justin was just talking with Kyle about what happened on track last year and what the expectations are for this one. What is going to be the key to surviving, but also having fun next Monday night? What is our first race on the real Roval going to be like?
It's still going to be the chicanes. I mean, they made it a little bit easier so you don't fly through the air this time, but I think the chicanes are going to be the danger area, so just got to mind your P's and Q's through there.
We look forward to seeing it, but it's got certainly one that has been circled on the calendar since the start of the year. But you get a top three tonight. You're in a very good spot, looking to advance to the round of 12. I know it is just one small step in your goal of winning the Full Throttle Cup for this season. But Dylan, up to this point and tonight, who makes it happen for you?
Just give a shout out to our sponsor, SKSimRacing, and all you guys at LSR TV for putting the show on.
Third place finisher tonight from Richmond. Dylan, thanks for chatting with us. Again, congrats on the good results, and I guess we'll see what next week brings.
10-4.
And a big thanks, as always, to our top three finishers, Dylan Jones, Kyle Kamer, and, of course, winner tonight, Andrew Friedage, for giving us some time post-race and chatting about the points. We alluded to it, so let's tell you about it. Friedage has advanced, joining Jason Jacoby as the two drivers locked into the round of 12. Dylan Jones is third, plus 33. Jonathan Cadell is fourth, plus 17. And then it starts to get interesting. Kamer up 14. Chambliss plus 10. He and Miller are tied for 6th and 7th. Thomas George is 8th in points. He is only plus 9. Shackelford plus 7. McBride plus 5. Stanford plus 4. And then Scott Brotherton is the cut line, Justin. He lost 5 positions in the championship standings tonight to fall down to that cut line. He is only 2 points ahead of Connor Horn, who made up some ground, but not all of it. And then you have McClendon minus 9, Jones minus 11, Fredericks minus 13. Those guys need not only a good run for them, but some of the cars in front of them to have some issues.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to hope for the latter there, because some of those drivers have struggled on the road courses this season. Fredericks is around maybe 10th to 12th we've seen, give or take, at Sonoma and Watkins Glen this season. We've seen Andrew T. Jones have his issues there. We've seen McClendon have some decent runs on the road courses. But Brotherton, a bit some struggles on the road courses. So Horn, I'm not too worried about. But There's a lot of unknowns with the Roval. There's the chance that there's a lot of carnage. There's the risk of trying to be too aggressive. There's a risk of taking some advertising boards with you. There's the risk of when trying to go for a pass, you end up making a mistake. There's the difficulty of said pass. There's so many factors that you have to think about, not just for the Peak Series, not just across the service, but of course in this series, that is going to cause a lot of concern for some drivers next Monday night, because it's not going to be easy to make it to the checkered flag, let alone try and have a good finish.
55 laps, the yellows are turned off. It is going to be a crazy race from the Roval. You're not going to want to miss that one as we wither the field of 16 championship hopefuls down to 12. That one again next Monday night. Until then, though, that's it for us here tonight from the virtual Richmond Raceway. Encourage you to stay up to date with all the upcoming sim racing action here on LSR TV and the iRacing Sports Network. We'll be back with you next Thursday, or this Thursday, I guess I should say, and next for the final 2 rounds of the Recmo Tech Cup Series. Those are 9 Eastern starts. You want to catch those, but of course you can stay up to date with us by following us on Twitter at LSR TV. Give us a like over at facebook.com/LSR TV official, and by logging online to LiveSimRacing.com. On behalf of our entire team at LSR TV and for your broadcast crew tonight, for our producer downstairs, Randy Janet, for Justin Prince, and myself, Evan Pasoko, want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Andrew Ferdinand, 12-time race winner on 2019, but we are far from over as we get set to return next Monday night for the round of 16 finale at the Charlotte Roval. That one on Monday, September the 30th. That race and every race of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series going to be found right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Richmond, where Ferdinand is moving on.